Is that the teams will use the same baseline data and revenue estimates which will be provided and discussed at the first negotiations meeting following the establishment of ground rules. It is understood that the teams will agree on the financial information at a subsequent meeting, and the financial information will be available at each meeting. This is the first meeting following the establishment of ground rules. I think, I don't know, probably the second. Second, so we've already violated that ground rule. But I know that there was a meeting between the DEA representatives and Mr. Reap, and so I don't know if the parties want to have a conversation about that.
I don't believe that we violated it, because I think what the meeting after the ground rules was the presentation by Mr. Reap of that information.
Yeah.
And that following that, at some subsequent meeting, we would determine the baseline that we're going to agree to.
Is that an appropriate place to continue the conversation is what I'm asking.
It seems to me that since the information is out, we've discussed it, we've had a lot of time to think about it. I know that DEA representatives met with Mr. Reap and went over this information. It seems to me that we could come to some kind of understanding or agreement with what we're going to work with. Because we're getting close to when we're going to be talking about it.
I absolutely agree, and I think that the next agenda should have that as a topic. It is not one of our topics for the agenda this evening.
Are there questions or clarifications that we should get out about the financial information? We've had it for a long time. The conversations have been going on. Are there questions or more clarification that needs to be handled?
I know that we just met with Mr. Reap on Thursday night and have not had an opportunity to meet as a group since then, over the Easter weekend. So we are not prepared at this time to come with questions because we have not met as a group.
You negotiators haven't met as a group since you talked? Is that what you're saying?
On Thursday night, correct.
Oh, okay.
And we weren't all present there either. So. Excuse me.
Mr. Reap, if I could ask, this information that you handed out before, that is what you discussed with the DEA representatives, correct?
Yeah, that'd be correct. Lyle and Jim and I met, and it wasn't a long meeting, but we kind of reviewed the documents that I handed out at the financial presentation, and reviewed them and talked about some detail on how I got to those numbers. I also shared with them the State Foundation Aid worksheet that comes up with the number on the one sheet of $26,927,464, and showed them how that worked. And so it was, I thought it was a good meeting. I hope it clarified how we got to the 773, and we talked about mill levies, and I explained the 1.1 million and how that will take either a valuation increase of 112% or board action to get there. But we talked about those possibilities. Yeah, I think it was a good meeting, and I hope it clarified everything. But we didn't. The only thing they asked when we left is for a list of all of the people on the index schedule and a detailed breakdown of salaries and benefits, and I emailed that to them yesterday. Yeah, and so so that they can see the people that are in there, and I mean, it's got everything from who's taking health to whether they're taking a single or a family, and
Okay.
and then I sent in an email how that's not going to match perfectly our teacher calculator, because at a time in January when that was prepared, we've had staff changes since then. But if you, on that spreadsheet, add them all the figures up, it's off by 44,000. I mean, that's 4 health insurance policies that people take at $12,480 apiece. So I hope we can agree that the baseline number of what it costs right now in the district for salary and benefits for the people on this salary schedule is $22,998,000. So moving forward, that being said, we know where we're at now. It's easier to calculate how much things will cost going forward. I don't know if they've had time to go through that, but my opinion would be we're in agreement on the numbers, but without any surprising detailed questions that might come back. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I think we can agree that we can talk about that next time. And try to get agreement on what we're talking about, on those numbers.
Well, that brings us to item number 4, discuss topics for negotiations. Floor is open.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Fay.
the DEA would like to actually remove one. And in discussion, we sat down and discussed a week and a half ago our topics, and we were writing problem statements and so forth to come up with topics. And our number 11, which is retention of highly qualified and experienced teachers, we found not to be a topic. That's a problem. And it's a problem that we've already solved with topics in the upper half, including salaries, index schedule, and personal leave. So we think that the broadness of that retention of highly qualified and experienced teachers is not an issue, it's a problem. It's not a topic. So therefore, we are taking that off the table. It's just too broad.
Yeah. Mr. Fay, I think would agree with your reasoning. It's going to be discussed in many other topics, several other topics, so that would make sense.
Okay. Retention of highly qualified and experienced teachers has been removed from the list of items. There are a lot of other items, so the floor is open.
Well, at least we don't discuss them if I know. Some of them we've already discussed. We didn't do that one last time. That's kind of a memorandum of understanding, I think. We didn't go into that one. We can see what they want to talk. We're going to talk about all of them anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
We could just go in order. That'd be the easiest thing to do.
Do you have a preference? I mean, we're going to be talking about all of them anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
We kind of do have to get them all out tonight
Yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
of the aspect. So.
I guess we don't really care, so go ahead and...
We can.
Obviously, number 1 being salaries, we understand what that is. We understand what that is. Number 3, the swim team language, we've kind of already tended to agreement to it. The licensed teacher subpay, we've discussed and tabled already. The clarification of the definition of national certification was discussed and tabled. You begin the discussion of the school calendar. I suppose maybe we should start there with a clarification of where you wanted to go from your chart.
Right. Yeah, well, talking about that, one of the things we wanted to get a common understanding of what we look at and what is not available for professional development anymore for us because of the state mandated training. And we don't see that as getting less or getting those days being returned to us from the state. We sort of see that as becoming more. So that's what, that was our basis of understanding that we wanted to get to.
So my assumption then would be that we're looking, or you're looking to add days to the calendar.
Well, I think if we had a problems statement, it would just be that, and we kind of touched on it last time, and you indicated that there's kind of a difference in information that's coming to both sides of the table. But yeah, we just wanted to put out data that says we used to have this many days, now there's only this many. There's a sense or a feeling from what we're being told that it's not enough, but it sounds like you are getting different information. So we just wanted to put it on the table as, you know, this is an issue that we that keeps coming back to us, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not really sure where that discrepancy is coming up, but we regard all of our teachers as professionals, and all professionals do ongoing professional development. Now we're being told what some of that professional development is going to be and what's important. So we have fewer days to do things that maybe what we or our committees, which are made up of teachers, are wanting to do. So that's where we're looking at saying, well, where can we come together and resolve that issue and provide the additional professional development that we think our teachers want. We're hearing that that's what people want. So how can we resolve that? And we're just really asking for us to have that discussion. We don't really, we're not coming out and saying, here's what we're going to do for professional development, so just do it. We want to talk with you about that.
Ma'am, we totally understand where you were coming from when you say, you have people that are saying, yes, we need more professional development, because as we implement new things, new technology, we totally get that. But I understand where Mr. Fay said, where we're hearing that, no, we don't, because a lot of times what happens is we get a professional development day, and for lack of better words, it's a cookie cutter professional development day. We have 4 people sitting right here, right now, who are, if you asked us what we needed for professional development, we have 4 different things. I could go grab 12 more, okay, and we'd have a whole plethora of ideas for professional development. Professional development is, for lack of better words, I think it's a specialty item. And I know Mr. Fay last year, 2 years ago, said if you want an extra day, then I think your words were something on the line, you need to wow us, okay? Professional development, like I said, it's a specialty item. We can't go shopping at Walmart for many specialty items. And so I agree, we have to find a way to where we can meet her needs for professional development. We can meet mine. We're very diverse. What we don't want is to add an extra day just to say we have another day of professional development, because
And I'm going to piggyback on it for a second, because our last professional development day was on the mental health first day.
Right, yeah, that's.
And in all reality, I walked away from that mental health first day going, that was not worth it. Now, hold on a second.
Well,
Because after the fact, I went and read the book and went, wow, this could have been really great.
good material,
Great material.
very good material.
But the how it was
I see what you're saying.
presented.
So how do we reconcile with what our professional development committee is working on and bringing forward? Because that's where all this work gets done with.
In all reality, most of what we find, a lot of it happens in the summer. Am I not correct in that statement? Good professional development happens in the summer. Good opportunities happen in the summer. Some happen during the school year. If we could find a way to incorporate that. I mean, if somebody goes to a 3-day seminar in the summer that's very conducive to what they're teaching, that's better and more and a quality professional development as opposed to, like I said, something that is
Yeah, I
going to catch
understand what you're
everybody.
saying, I understand what you're
You
saying.
know?
Mhm.
And as an elementary teacher too, there's different things throughout our day that, I mean, we have professional development added in. For example, this Friday, I'm gone for a half a day for professional development. We're required to go to phonics training. 2 weeks ago, I was required to go and watch another teacher teach for 2.5 hours. Every K through 5 educator is required to do that. So that's 7.5 hours right there, where it's not on a professional development day. It's during the year too. So there's ways that there is professional development that for K through 5, I know, and it could be the same for high school too, I don't know, but we are required to go and do these things too, which is professional development, but it's not necessarily on that professional development day. So there is professional development going on too. So I think that's where there's some teachers that, I mean, to add another day on and have all this other stuff added in, it's a lot.
Superintendent Sullivan, when the elementary teachers do those types of professional development, how is that? Is it part of something else, or is it counted as professional development? I mean, how is it done or recorded, or what's the?
It's a professional development activity that occurs during the regular workday, and the district hires substitutes.
Mhm. So is it written down as those are PD days for, or PD hours or something for the elementary? You know what I'm saying? Does it sort of count in the larger scheme of professional development?
I'm not really following.
Well, we have X amount of days, so is it part of, is it part of some of those days?
The answer to that is no.
Is it different than the early release days where there's some professional development? That's also different.
It is different.
Okay. So how do we find out what is coming through the professional development committee? Are there minutes of that, or do you get recommendations from that committee for topic areas or things that either they or the leadership team is looking at and so on? I mean, how do we get that across? How do we find that out?
I would have to go to Mrs. Catherine.
Mhm.
She does have minutes of those meetings and of those conversations, and get her input.
Mhm. That's why I'm wondering how that comes about. Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like we might need to gather
Need
some
some more
more data
information, yeah.
and talk to some more people before
Well,
we
I
can
think
come up
that's,
with possible solutions.
well, I definitely think that, you know, because right now discussion is more of a, of how, any questions that we might have and you might have.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Mr. Fay, you might recall last time, Mr. Hanson and I really liked your idea. The board would need something, in return on professional development.
Absolutely, and that's kind of what
So
Mr.
that's-
Schobinger was bringing up, that a lot of us, you know, professional development for us doesn't stop because the school year stops.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of us spend a lot of time in the summer going to technology classes. You know, I went 2 summers ago to a week-long AP Institute, and all of that is for the betterment of our students, and that's professional development.
So if just say as a hypothetical that something like that was implemented, would you be opposed to somehow bringing that information and sharing it with the colleagues that it would be applicable to? I mean, I'm thinking if you go to AP, elementary teachers probably would not care. But if you've got other AP teachers or something, I mean, would that, how could we maximize and gain knowledge from someone going to one of those good conferences?
If I go to an AP, like the AP conference I went to was specific to European history. So it dealt with all my class information.
Sure.
So I brought my, that information, obviously it impacted my classes directly. So the AP Institute I went to was geared directly towards that specific curriculum. And obviously, I'm the only one who teaches the,
Teachers, yeah. But I mean, just saying, say it was applicable. Is there a way to share that, to bring that knowledge back? Because everybody can't go to that conference all the time. Is there a way to do that?
well, I think that I can kind of talk what Coach Schobinger and I did. You know, when we attended a coaches convention, you know, we split up and go all different directions to hear all the different speakers. And when we get together, we type and write and share. So that we do that. Do we sit down and immediately, you know, to try and remember where we're at? So yeah, I think there is a way that it could be done. Reporting system, you know, and how you figure it, who it's applicable to might be an issue.
So currently, are any of these activities that you're doing on your own recorded in some way? I'm assuming you're getting continuing education credits for it, for your licensure.
If we so choose, yes.
Okay. Other than that, though, on a district level, is it recorded or reflected anywhere that you're doing these sorts of things?
We're
I'm just
asked
curious.
at the beginning of the year when we do our professional development goals, at least at the high school, we're asked to list all of the things that we've done, you know, that has impacted, you know, the things that we've attended. So we do write them down for the purpose of our professional development, our goals that we as individuals are working on
Okay.
in our classroom. But again, I'm not sure if that's district-wide or if that's just the high school. I don't know.
We find out. I think that's all we have on that topic for right now, unless you had something specific you wanted to say about it.
Well, we can touch on graduated personal leave if you want.
Sure.
Thanks.
Sure.
Go ahead. Well, we feel that, like, the problem of retaining highly qualified teachers, graduated personal leave is one of the topics that would definitely cover that. We feel that teachers that are with the district for a long time, we want to make sure that not only is their classroom and their students important, but their family is as well. So we have a graduated personal leave proposal that we'd like you to look at. Do you want me to read it, or? Okay.
I think they just gave
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
This is fair.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
I think that, Mrs. Fair, you'll find that it's very similar to what we discussed last year.
And last year, just to refresh my memory, the change that we made in personal leave was how many days you could accumulate. Is that correct? We went from 6.
That was actually two different topics last year, and this one was dropped at a meeting I was absent from, so I don't know why.
Listen to yourself.
I don't have my minutes with me.
And yeah,
So maybe
But-
we should look back at that, maybe we should look back at that discussion.
and I know that, you know, last year was kind of one that I brought forth, and retention of our teachers. You know, I just read an article the other day that the number of students entering teacher education programs has been cut in half in the last 5 years. That 5 years ago, approximately 11% of freshmen were entering into some sort of teacher education. That's down to like 4.2% now. So finding new teachers is going to become very difficult. Retention of those teachers is where we might have to focus, and this is one way we can attract quality and keep quality.
Okay, so the problem that we have now is, what's the problem that the personal leave change speaks to for you?
Retention of quality and highly experienced teachers. Quality teachers and highly qualified teachers.
So do we have a problem that our highly qualified long-term teachers are leaving?
We have,
Because of this? And
not necessarily because of this, but it's one way of well, I think I can speak for a lot of people when I say that sometimes the morale in our schools isn't the greatest. And this is one way of showing our teachers that they matter.
And it could very well fit right in with your item 9. I mean, it's definitely would help for recruitment, we believe. We wouldn't be
So-
the only school out there doing it.
One thing that we wanted to point out is we think that we are probably the only school district that does career increments, which does encourage you to stay longer. You get additional pay as you move through the schedule.
Well, it's in addition to the schedule.
In addition to that, but I mean, you do, the longer you're here, the longevity. Is it every 2 years? You get a career increment, which is additional pay.
This is a tough topic for us because while we appreciate that teachers do have personal lives, we also want our teachers to be in the classroom. So
With our kids, with the
with our
students.
students.
You're exactly right. Then why are we pulling our teachers out to watch other teachers?
That's not something we'll probably debate at this table.
I understand that.
If you have a child in this district and they are in athletics or anything, when you only have 2 personal days and you want to support them and support the midgets and you go to a state tournament, there's your 2 days. If you have a wedding or anything else that happens that year, you have to take days without pay. I just don't feel that 2 days is very much. And I understand you want to be in your classroom as well and all those things, but I guess
And
that's.
I will speak personally. I mean, my wife and I both teach in this district. I was fortunate to coach some things that my kids were in, yet my wife missed out on a lot of those things because of amount of personal days. And so, and that's just speaking from a personal experience. And I know those types of things happen a lot in our district. You know, they want to support their children. It's not like it was 20-some years ago. I mean, when your kids went on the road, they were on the road. You didn't travel. Now, parents want to see, they want to see their kids even when they are in Bismarck or Williston or Minot.
Mr. Reep, could I ask you, do you have an idea as far as, are we having some of our experienced teachers leaving? Is that a problem for our district? Or do you have numbers on that?
Well, yeah, obviously in the last 5 years, that's been something that I've looked at a lot. We have had more new staff hired in the last 6 years than in the history of the district, and that would be true for a couple of reasons. One, obviously, is growth. We have added positions in all sectors, K-12, and so that would be true. When this topic came up of retaining highly qualified teachers, I did a little data for the past 5 years, and they really fall into 3 groups, or at least I put them into 3. People that retire, and we knew 7 years ago, 10 years ago, from TFFR data that we were having a huge bubble of veteran teachers that at some point would retire, and that happened. And so I went back 5 years, and about 40% of the teachers who left our district left and retired from the profession. Now, that's not to say that they didn't do something after that, you know, try something different, or I'll use my wife for an example. Retired, and now she's teaching a couple classes at DSU. So did she totally get out of education? No, but obviously I marked her as a retired from the K-12 arena. Another 40% of people went to other districts. And as we became part of a huge student mobility district, those people had spouses that were transferred to different states, different towns, and we gained a lot of teachers through the energy play, if you will, but we lost, this year we lost 3 during the school year because of that. And another one will leave after this year. And so there was that sector that stayed in the profession as far as we know, but they went to teach elsewhere. Or they switched from classroom to counselor, and that took them elsewhere, not in our district, but somewhere else, as an example. And then there was the 20%, mostly the younger teachers that left the profession or left for other reasons. So does personal leave have a big variance on that? I have no data to either support nor deny that. I did also look, though, at the 40% that retired. The average number of years that they stayed after they hit the rule of, and it's 85 for all of those people, we won't get to some 90s yet, was a little over 5 years. So that was the average. So they didn't hit the rule of 85 and then that's it. I'm leaving the profession. We had some that bought years to get to that and then left, but the average was a little over 5.2, I think, of hitting the rule of and then staying on. So some of those people stayed because they still love their job and they like going to work. It's so many different reasons, and when people call me to get advice on should I retire, every conversation is different for every person. It's a complex question that we all ask ourselves. When is it right for me? And career increments, they're a part of that. That helps us. How do I pay my health insurance is probably the largest looming factor for everybody. But there's other things. There's health, there's grandkids get in the way, all sorts of very cool items. So that's just a little bit of data on that, Mrs. Fair. Sorry I took a little long there, but it's an important topic.
When you say 40% left for other teaching jobs in other districts, were most of those due to a spouse transfer?
Almost, not 100%, but yes, yeah, for the largest majority of them.
So we're not bleeding teachers to surrounding districts or anything like that?
I'm unaware of, except for 1 or 2 where we've lost people to surrounding areas or even within the state. Husband gets transferred to Blue Cross of Blue Shield of Fargo, we lose a great teacher in her 3rd year. Those kind of things.
Would you say, do you know on that 40% that left basically due to a spouse transfer or something like that, were they mostly our newer teachers in that, like 0 to 6?
I would say
that
so,
area?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they weren't long-term. There might have been some that had. And I think the number in that 5-year period was 136, if I recall. That's how many had left.
So it doesn't look like there's a problem in that way. Looks like we're retaining the teachers unless there is our longer-term teachers, more experienced teachers, unless there is something outside of teaching that has them leave. Retiring or their spouse has gotten a job transfer, it sounds like. Well, those are the 0 to 6. So really, those retaining teachers, it looks like that isn't an issue. 40% retired, the others were in the 0 to 6 year category. and left because of a transfer. And then 20% were those newer teachers that left the professions or went to some other profession, according to that data. If I'm reading that right?
I think so.
If I'm reading my numbers right? But I have two problem statements written down here. One of them says experienced teachers are leaving because of low morale. The other one says parents who are teachers don't have enough personal time to attend their children's activities. I mean, those are kind of
I
our two,
will-
breaking down those two, what I heard.
I'd like to correct that. I'm not saying that teachers are leaving because of morale. I'm saying that there are some morale issues in the schools.
Okay.
And it's more of a, in my mind, it's more of a benefit saying, you know, go watch your kids, go take care of yourself, in some aspects. So I'm not saying the teachers are necessarily leaving because of morale.
And you can accumulate your personal leave as well, can you? So you would have some of that time to take off?
Sure, if
you've
you
saved
don't
it.
have the other obligations like kids and so forth. And we did negotiate, you know, an extension of that, and we appreciated that, absolutely. But getting there is a long time.
Well, it seems like experienced teachers aren't leaving. I understand what you're saying, but the data doesn't show us that experienced teachers are leaving. I do understand what Mr. Schobinger is saying. That maybe is a bigger issue for teachers. More of a personal issue rather than an experienced teacher leaving.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm not sure we have had enough time to see how the new, what we agreed to last time on accumulating personal leave, if that, what kind of an effect that has had and what kind of a benefit it's had. I don't know how many people have used, you know, blocks and saved it and were able to take advantage of that personal leave to go see their children do things.
And we probably won't see that for another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
We'll take time to see.
For those parents that are really involved, they'll never get to the accumulation. I can think of, well, many. And they expressed that. They said that, you know, that's good, but I'll never see it until my kids have graduated. And yeah, you know, for me, my kids were Class B, so, you know, our farthest distance was Bowman. And never really realized how wonderful that was. You know, and our parents and our teachers, they really do. They sacrifice a lot to go support their school and their kids, and as it should be. But they'll never see the accumulation, which was.
And I'll be honest with you, as a coach, when we go on the road, honestly, you don't see a lot of teachers there. You will see a lot of other parents there. But you won't see a lot of teachers there at times. And that, especially if their child is competing in a sub-varsity contest that starts earlier in the day. I mean, I just look back to this fall, and I think about, you know, and I look back to previous falls. You know, we've had a lot of players who were children of teachers, and I kind of felt bad for some of them. I mean, that's just being honest about it.
Well, I personally missed a lot of my son's activities as well because I work, and that's my choice, but it's also my choice if I'm taking my vacation, or I took a lot of time off without pay. And work, you know, so but that's my choice to get to the baseball game in time. I mean, that, I had to do that. So, and I'm not saying that that's what other people do, but I understand how you think about what you're going to do.
And to take time off without pay deduct is not nearly as easy in the public sector as it is in the private sector. You know, there's things that we have to follow. And you have to get approval from your principal, I believe, and if it hits a number from the superintendent. So, you know, it is different.
We're just talking about, I think we're just talking about that, to make sure we're understanding, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So the problem is low morale and wanting to be able to support children and family. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it's hard to make your family feel like a priority when you only have 2 days. If you might not need them one year, and then the next year it's like, oh, something comes up, you know.
Right.
So yeah, that's to make sure our families are a big priority.
Yeah, and I didn't get to teach for very long. I taught for a few years, and I remember sometimes things like that happened. And I remember having to get special permission to leave to go to a wedding right before Thanksgiving. And so I do understand, and I do have empathy for the problem. So we just, you know, have to look at it globally. So this is something we'll have to think about.
Where's our data on that? Where's our talking points on that? We're getting our information from them already. We're looking for that.
Is it right on the page?
What?
If you would like, I mean, I can take another one, you know, while you're preparing.
We just want to find our stuff, but yeah, you can sure.
I'll take the outside the work negotiate language into the negotiated agreement. Last negotiation cycle, we did a memorandum of understanding, which I have in front of me. And the bottom of the memorandum says this memorandum of understanding cannot nor will not bind further boards or committees to dissolve or withdraw for reasons deemed. What we're really looking for is to put this into the negotiated agreement so that should a new board come in, should a new superintendent come in, that they understand that there is already, it's there, that there's a you know, an accepted nights that are, you know, there, you know, for the opening night, things like that, and that any of the other nights need to be compensated. So if there is another curriculum night, or if there's a read-along night that I know one of the schools did, you know, those types of things there, that it's understood that they fall into that outside the work day agreement.
Since we don't have that in front of us, could we just take a brief recess and get some copies? I mean, especially since Mrs.
Oh.
Ricks doesn't have a copy of it at all. She wasn't here.
Absolutely.
Could we just get a copy and just take a brief
That'd be
moment?
great. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
that.
Yeah.
I sort of decided.
Well, give it to her. No.
Can't read my scribble.
No, I think I
Perfect, thank you.
I have this, and that, right at page 9, so there's 2, didn't they say 3?
They have relevant,
This is the other.
they talk about school board policy somewhere in the.
Just the masking.
Yeah, and
I did have that. So you can-
And then 5B, page.
Yep. got that.
The meeting will come back to order.
And the other comment that I would like to point out to Mrs. Fair and Mrs. Ricks is that the second to last topic says it is further understood that outside of the contract of school day compensation will be a future topic of discussion by the parties.
Yep.
And that's why we brought it up.
So, since we had a memorandum of understanding on this, what was the reasoning that it didn't get put in the negotiated agreement? Was it a language issue? Was it, we felt this was an administrative issue? Kind of what?
There was a lot of issues, I think, with language, trying to come up with appropriate languages, trying to come up with what
In time.
time.
I think we.
Yeah, I think that we pushed it, through for time
Yeah.
aspects as well, so that
We
we could
wanted-
get contracts out, because we were well into the summer, or well, actually well into the school year by then.
Yeah, I would agree that, yeah, we just really needed to have something that would be agreeable so we could at least move ahead. And, yeah. As you know, the school board really, and this came up, this is from last time, really doesn't want to add this type of language to the negotiated agreement, because when there are other changes that come up, you're changing your whole negotiated agreement again and again.
I would agree with that, and I know that I think there's one solution to it, and that's to hold the administration accountable to the school day and so forth. I think that would solve it.
Meaning?
To not do outside the workday activities. And I know there was one this year, it was not mandated, but it was strongly encouraged.
By the district or by the
By a
building?
principal, by a building. It was not district-wide, it was just a building.
So that, to me, is an administrative issue that the superintendent needs to deal with. It's not really a negotiations issue for us.
But I think that the topic is because of the fact that we did say that we would discuss it further.
Okay.
And what we said here was a curriculum night or some sort of parent engagement activity that's outside of the contracted school day that would be mandated by the school district.
District, yeah.
And we did say one. No, that was
Meaning
the,
what? I'm sorry.
well, it was inferred that we would agree to the one. And that, because our biggest concern when we talked about it was when would the second one come, then the third one, and so forth.
But in here, we
Yeah.
are not, that is not
Right.
in this.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah, we didn't even give the district that exception. in
yeah,
this.
that's good. But that's what was the reason why we brought it up was that sentence.
So, I mean, do you feel that any issues with this particular problem would be handled through the grievance procedure as it was in the past? Do we need, is there a problem anymore, I guess?
I guess, and I'm trying to say, because some of our teachers talk to me in confidence, and I guess I'll put it how this teacher put it to me, and I'm going to leave it gender neutral because,
No.
quote unquote, they were ridiculed as being not a team member because they weren't going to attend the reading night, the read-along night. You're not a team member. How can you call yourself a team member if you're not going to be there?
So.
And they had another commitment.
So what's the problem we're trying to address? Is it the same problem as last time?
Well, I think the problem is to be a future topic of discussion by the parties. I don't think it's a problem. I think we need to continue the process of including this in the language at some point.
And the school board is probably not going to agree to put that in the language.
Yeah.
So what can we do to resolve that?
we went through the whole grievance procedure and had this all written up, and then the very year after that, another building required it again. Almost the same identical thing. So it's like, we go through this whole procedure and we think everything's fine, and then the next year, bam, they're doing the same thing or finding a way to go around it. So it's like, to solve that.
Dr. Sullivan, can you address this at all, or what we're talking about?
Well, I'm not aware of any stern encouragement that was given, so that's something that I'll have to explore. But, you know, the district has been cautious.
Well, and that wasn't a district, that
Mandating.
wasn't a district mandate. That was something that happened within a building. So to me, that goes back to the administration to figure out what happened, and that's really an issue you're gonna have to figure out.
Well, and
I think.
it was my understanding that the whole problem came down to it being a district mandated thing, that principals and teams of teachers do have that prerogative to plan those kinds of activities
If they want to.
at the building level if they want to. And so if that sounds like a personnel issue, I guess, if it's causing conflict and distress.
Mhm.
So is it enough for us to have this discussion in our minutes to say Dr. Sullivan is aware that, these issues will be looked into? Does that solve the problem?
I think that, this is a discussion time. This isn't a time to take it off the table.
Okay. That's fair.
Is there anything else on that topic? Okay, what's the next topic?
Mhm. Let's look at your
Um,
notes. Yeah, go ahead.
We wanted to address item 9, the recruitment of highly qualified and experienced teachers.
What's the problem?
The problem is the teachers that we do tend to lose are in the earlier years of their teaching career. So we feel that it would be advantageous to us as a district to attract more experienced teachers who are more likely to stick and stay with us. So we wanted to look at, under salary, placement on the salary schedule, which is on page 5. Item 1, we wanted to look at increasing the number of years that a teacher could bring in to 15. And then additionally, do you want to?
Well, we don't want to do too many things
Alright,
at one time.
okay.
But there's another part of that. And I think we have had a couple of instances where a teacher did not come because they couldn't bring their experience in as much as they would have liked to. And for us, if we look at the figures that Mr. Reeve just gave us, it looks like, 60% of the people who are leaving are in the 0 to 6 experience level. So if we can recruit people who are more experienced and bring them in, we think that will help.
So the solution of adding the .02 to the base of 0 through 6 didn't work.
Well, that wasn't the entire issue. The entire issue that was brought to us was beginning teachers can't afford to live in Dickinson. So if I took the salary we were paying at that time, I divided it by 12, and you take the 30%, you could see that it would be highly unlikely that someone could pay rent on what we were paying back then. And that was very important to the board, that we could bring our salary up and also be competitive with the other Class A schools. And we find that we are competitive, and we still remain competitive.
And we don't want to say that
Absolutely.
we don't want to recruit those teachers. That's not what we're saying.
No.
We're saying that if we have the opportunity to get an experienced teacher, and then that's a benefit to everybody.
Sure, it's a proven fact that if a teacher makes 5 years, they're probably going to stick to the profession.
Right, right.
Okay, and then unless there's any questions about that particular thing, the next sentence, starting with vocationally certified teachers, there's actually a math issue there, is my understanding. Is that correct, Mr. Reep? We actually need that to be 8,320 hours of trades and industry time.
It's what's being.
It's, yeah, because apparently a year of experience is 2,080 hours. And so it's just a simple math issue. For whatever reason, it was put at 8,000 instead of the full 8,320. I don't think it really changes anything practically, but just to be more accurate.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that the problem of recruitment of highly qualified and experienced teachers would be solved by increasing the number of years that they could bring into the district at 15 and just simply changing the language of the math, and that would be all.
Well, we're not saying that's going to solve it. It would assist the district in recruiting more experienced teachers.
Absolutely.
It would
Are
help.
you anticipating, because this is, kind of like the broad statement of retention, are you anticipating any other topics being raised that would help to recruit highly trained and experienced teachers? And if so, I think this is the time to bring it up.
I don't think so. We hadn't planned it that way.
Okay.
I don't
No,
think
we would
there
just
is.
stated it that way because that seemed to be the problem that we were addressing.
Okay.
The math issue is just a math. I
That's
guess
a language
we-
cleanup, isn't
We
it?
could have put it in there, but I think we didn't catch it at the time or something, and so
Yeah.
we thought, well,
We'll
we
just fix
have
it
to-
with this.
Yeah.
Okay.
If that's acceptable. Actually, if you wanted to, we could just decide that one now and be done, split them, or we could put them, to whatever you want to do. But we don't want to have that in there like that.
You're the vote person.
Oh, I think it said 8,000 hours from the state. We need to check on that. I don't believe it goes by 4 years. I think it said 8,000 hours. But it's been quite a while since I had to apply, so I don't remember. I had to verify 16,000 hours to certify in welding and power sports. So it didn't go by years then, but it might have changed.
Yeah, I don't know.
But we should look.
It's a
Okay.
CTE issue, really.
Right. I can call Clark and get that information.
Okay,
For the
yeah.
next meeting.
Let's check
Sure,
on that to
that would
make
be
sure
great.
that it's correct then, yeah.
Okay. Since, are you ready? May I?
Yes, please go
Sorry,
ahead.
I just didn't wanna.
No, I'm just making a note so I.
Okay, so
know what you're talking
we've
about.
brought up the topic of recruitment of highly qualified. I think we all agree that in the past, because of the situation in Dickinson, we did a lot to raise that base and be able to recruit new teachers. Matter of fact, I think our first-year teachers right now are maybe number 4 in the state.
Could
which
be
is-
even more than that.
Which is awesome, but
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure we're about number 4. That trend, I don't know, continues as we go through. And so, we really think we need to take a look at the indexes. And I think you guys are aware that there is a freeze in the index. And if I do have copies of that if you'd like to see it. Okay?
Sure.
Okay, this is currently what we have.
I have one.
If you.
Yeah, right here.
Okay, if you,
Okay.
Can I stand? Would you like the microphone or can I stand?
I
I'm okay, I can use my teacher voice. Okay.
We can hear you. You're sitting right here.
And I, for people who don't really sit and look at this, a lot of times kind of vague, but if you go across horizontally, you can see I have penciled in there 0.03, 0.03, 3%, 3%, 4%, 4%. Let's just take the BS plus, let's go BS plus 20, or BS plus 16, okay? If we go down vertically, each increment for each year is 0.03, so it's 3%, 3%, 3%, 3%. And then at year 7, it's only 1%. And then it goes and it bumps back to 3%. So there's that little freeze. If you're in that 7-year range, you basically get nothing, and that does affect everybody down in the lower right hand, okay, in that whole sector down there, okay, because now, in all actuality, every lane there is losing 2%, which ends up being, you know, for a veteran teacher, ends up being a pretty good sum. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it ends up being $720 in a cell. So if we're talking about, okay, we want to go get somebody, we want to bring in 15 years, well, you can help that out by fixing that right there in itself. Because now anybody coming in with 15 years, of course, they're going to have, you know, even 10. They're going to have the years of experience. They're going to have their credits. We're going to go ahead, we can bump that up and make it a lot easier to retain some of those teachers and maybe hire some of those teachers. So we would like to look at that item right there. I mean, it's pretty obvious, pretty easy to see.
Mr. Reed, do you have the history on how this, what happened here, or how that came about?
Well-
And does it seem, I mean, does this seem, is this correct to your calculations?
Yeah, that's
there?
exact, I mean, I guess I didn't get a handout, but I'm
Oh,
looking
I'm
at.
sorry.
That's all right, I'm looking at the index, and this came up, I think, last session, last November. It was discussed, but nothing, or even prior to that. And it happened when the board and the DEA agreed to some, for lack of a better word, compression in years 0 through 6. And at that time, in fact, on this index, we had blue cells, and we call them blue cells. And the issue there was changing the index, accelerating the index in years 0 to 6, because the price of rent, the price of cost of living, all of those things. I think everybody agreed that the beginning teachers were, you know, it was just harder for them to make it on cost of living in our school district. And so
And I think you're exactly right, because the school board was very, and Mr. Hanson was very adamant that
Right.
that had to happen for us to.
And no matter where you, when that was changed, when both parties agreed to it, there has to be a line drawn somewhere, and it was drawn between 6 and 7, and that's, you know, where Jay's showing that increase, although it's not a freeze, it's pretty negligible, and you know, teachers can, and it's more pronounced in the 0 BS to BS 16. If you look over at master's level, it's slightly higher. I think it's 1.5, a percentage point and a half. And so we've had some teachers that have gotten to that, and guess what they do? They move horizontally, and then they bypass that. Yeah, they got to take the credits, and they, but we found a lot of them this summer that used that as a solution, and they had to pay for the credits. I get that, and so again, it comes back to the issue of where the school district puts the money to recruit teachers, all teachers, from whether they have 10 years and a master's or a master's in 15. We have lost some teachers that haven't come because they couldn't bring more than 10 years in. I can quantify that. Has there been hundreds of them? No, there hasn't. Because usually teachers, after they've reached 10 years in a district, stay. But we have 2 this year that have been offered contracts that could benefit if they could get more than their 10 years that they're bringing in. Will that cause them not to sign? I don't know. It has been mentioned that that would be discussed at bargaining. So, and you know, going back on the wall, Buck Haas was business manager when the 10-year max was put in, and it was 7 before that. And the district has done that with administrators also. They could bring in 0, and then I think it was 7, and then it was 10. And I remember teachers in our school district that the wife got hired, could bring in the years, and 2 years before the other one couldn't, and it caused problems. And, so, you know, whether or not the entire index changes for that, obviously, if you change the index from 7 down to 15, it's going to add index points and cost. And I don't.
And we
looked at it.
We understand that. We understand that.
And so, unless you're going to change it throughout, but you know, I don't hear any.
I've looked at that too.
Yeah. If you don't change it, if you just change where the small gap is and push it down, you're adding money to the veteran teachers and not to the beginning teachers. I mean, it's an easy way to say that.
And in retrospect with what Mr. Schobinger had said, in the past 10 years, we have done a lot to recruit the newer teachers, including a salary freeze in 2009, 2010, including...
And we understood that.
Absolutely.
I mean,
we understand that we
you know.
need to recruit teachers. But like I said earlier, with the fact that fewer and fewer people are going into education, I'm going to look at Dickinson High School, for instance. How many student teachers have we had in the last 2 years? Very, very, very few. And where it used to be, you'd have 5 or 6 per year, if not per semester. So they're coming rarer and rarer. I really admire those teachers who made that solution themselves to go and move lanes. But I do want to just mention that if they do need to move lanes, every credit that they earn requires 15 hours of work. That's 2 days. So to move lanes, you literally have to take 15 days out of your summer to earn 8 credits. Actually, it's 16 to earn 8 credits.
And that's good professional development.
It is, and they're rewarded on the salary schedule for that.
Yeah, but the
Yeah.
good news is you get to keep that bump the next summer and the next summer and the next summer
Yep.
after that.
I would really be reluctant to undo what we just did last time.
And I think I understand what you're saying. It really stinks if you are year 6 moving to year 7.
No, I'm sorry, it affects anybody with 7 and beyond. It affects every teacher in our district who is past year 6. Every single teacher in the district that frees it. It doesn't just affect that one. Yeah, it affects you for 1 year, but it affects every teacher in our district beyond that year. And you know, and it's not a huge sum. Okay, like I said, I think it ended up being $720 per cell. But it affects every single teacher who's been here more than 7 years, more than 6 years. It doesn't just affect that 1 year.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Reed?
you know, I don't have this data in front of me because I'd have to look at previous indexes. But I think, and let's use BS 32 and 15 years, I think that index of 1.865 is the same now as it was 5 years ago. It didn't affect that cell. And it didn't affect the MS plus 16 and 15. The index changed and some of the percentages changed, but those at the top did not give up index points. I think that's correct, but don't hold me to that. I would want to look at previous index right before this happened. But I remember when it was discussed that, because at that time we had 58 people in BS 32 and 15, and their index didn't change, so it didn't affect them at all.
Yeah, so yeah, can we be clear? When we bumped the first 6 years, nobody beyond that went down.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
And maybe Mr. Schobinger is saying they didn't go up as much as if everyone would have got that percent. But I don't. I think they stayed the same. It increased in 0 to 6, but those below that did not go backwards. Those index points weren't reallocated.
Right.
In fact, I'm almost pretty sure that 1.865 has been that way for at least 7 years.
And you may be right, but we just talk about, we want to find ways to recruit quality teachers. Well, here's one. We've taken care of years 1 through 6. Let's take care of 7 through 35. You know, there's got to be somebody who's
Or 40.
And that's all we're saying.
Yeah.
And I would agree with you if you went back in previous years and probably looked at some of the
It's the
indexes.
same index.
But we've gone ahead in the previous 5 years. We've said we need to recruit young teachers. We've taken care of them. Veteran teachers stood back and said, "We understand this. We get it, but now it's time. It's time to get them caught up again."
And I would have mixed data on, it depends upon which teachers come into our district. But this year, we've hired some veteran teachers from outside of the district. One from Mandan and one from Bismarck, and they're both veterans. And they both got over $8,000 more than their current position. And so, don't get me wrong, as the HR person, I love the firing power that we have and hiring power because we are competing. And so I do have mixed feelings if I'm just being honest about going to 15, but I know it's affected some, and we've got a SLP with a ton of years of experience. I don't know her status yet, but there's a good example of, if I can go to 15, it makes it easier for me to decide. So,
Well, just the numbers speak for themselves. We're looking at the 2015-16 base, and we've done a great job. We are number 4. We are number 4. But then we go to the very end, and we're number 14.
which cell would that be from?
That would be the MS and 15. It would be our bottom cell. It would be our farthest.
And that 14th in the state?
Yep.
Of Class A schools or state?
That's
That's
all. That's
everybody?
everybody.
Okay.
That's everybody.
Are we including career increments in that number when you calculate that?
I'm just looking at the number that came from the state.
So that doesn't include the career increments, probably, because they don't,
They're not on the
No.
salary
yeah,
schedule.
that's not.
They wouldn't even know of those.
Yeah, they don't know what that is. So probably when you add those in, I think we're probably pretty competitive with those more experienced cells.
Well, I would like that data though. Can we have a
I'd like to see
comparison?
which districts also, because we compete with them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If it's New England, I'd like.
Oh,
to
no, I
know.
don't.
Yeah.
Well, I just had it here a second ago, and I lost it again.
Because I always compare with the large.
Absolutely.
The
And
big
I-
nine,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
know we've got each and every
And
one of them
I did that
except
too.
Williston.
And for instance, Bismarck at their first year teachers, number 7, And their top of the line is number 1. Devils Lake 59-28, Dickinson 4-14, Grand Forks 26-11, Jamestown 20-9, Minot 11-8, Valley City 40-13, West Fargo 64-12, and Williston 18-7.
Bismarck's number 1, and we're higher?
Then,
I know we're higher than Bismarck.
Because their top style is 81,364.
How
Our
many
top,
years is that, though?
there's 25 steps.
Okay, then we'd better add our career increments in, because then we have 37 steps.
Yeah, I think to discuss this further, we need to know if there is a problem, are we doing poorly in those upper cells or not, or lower cells? Which way do you guys say?
I don't know. I'm very confused.
Column upper. It's the top of the
Top
schedule,
of scale.
even though it's at the bottom of the page.
Okay. Because I think the reasoning behind bumping those first 6, and I know you've already said it, but because we weren't competing well.
Mhm.
And so now if we're not competing well at the top, then I want to know that.
Mhm. If I can just go back, I forgot to hand out this little chart that shows teachers who left the district and the years. We had that prepared and I just totally forgot, so that you could just see it, so we're not just talking about it. I had it sitting right here. Didn't do that, so there's that. I don't really have anything to say about it, I just wanted to give it to you, because I forgot to do it.
Well, plus it's pretty.
It's pretty,
And somebody,
very nice.
and Twyla, I'm sure, spent her time, so it's time for...
Somebody did that, so thank you very much.
No?
For the audience, this makes sense.
Good enough? Yeah.
Okay, there's 5 minutes left, so I think it's an
Okay.
appropriate time to
Perfect.
debrief
Mhm.
and set a next meeting date and time. And if there are any agenda topics that either party would want to put out. So, the minutes from March 17th were reviewed and approved. Additional topics were put out for negotiations, super block, and losing prep time, removing the reference to school board policies in the professional negotiated agreement, titles, names, and acronymous items, and school day were the 4 additional topics that were put out. The parties then began to discuss the items that have been proposed, topics for negotiations. The items that were discussed were evaluate and discuss some of the indexes on the salary schedule, graduated personal leave, school calendar, outside of the workday compensation, recruitment of highly qualified and experienced teachers, and the DEA removed retention of highly qualified and experienced teachers from the list. And so, did I miss anything? And so, I'm going to talk about the next agenda before we set a meeting date and time. It was suggested that discussion of and in compliance with ground rule number 3, we will discuss financial information at the next meeting and take a look at the baseline data and revenue estimates.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Fay?
I think that we still have 5 topics left to discuss.
Yes.
And I
I
think,
was
you
going to
know,
go through.
yeah, I think that would be, you know, relative to have that first, you know, seeing that, you know, how long it took us to discuss what we had today, we should discuss those first before we get into the discussion of what the money situation is going to be.
I think, well, what I would like to see is if we could at least agree that what was handed out before is agreeable to everyone, and these are the numbers we're talking about.
I agree. I think that's what we're looking for, just a confirmation that we're all working with the same numbers, so that.
And I would agree, but I would love to finish this this project before we start the next one.
Well, this is actually back from our ground rules, so I feel like we'd like to just grind up the ground rules. And we're not saying we're talking about those issues, we're just saying we're talking about, are we agreeing on the financials as presented? Because that will drive pretty much any other discussion we have about money, that will involve money. At some point, we need
We
to
have to.
agree on the
And I
numbers.
I do agree with that. I do agree that we do have to discuss that in subsequent meeting. It doesn't say the next meeting. It just says a subsequent meeting. And I have no problems discussing that next meeting if we can get through all of these. But I would hate to table these again, discussion of these, if that topic gets long-winded. Because we all have tendencies to get long-winded. Because this is meeting number 2 of discussion, and we haven't gotten through all of our topics yet.
Yeah.
Well, let me, go ahead.
No, those are topics.
Yeah, yeah. I guess what I would say is, because the board would like to discuss salaries next time, we would like to have the financial discussion so that we're agreeing on the numbers. We'd like to have that. Now, if you don't want to discuss the numbers, we still would like to discuss salaries as the first topic, or a topic next time. And it seems to me having a good understanding of those numbers is going to drive the discussion of the salaries.
Should we have to go through the others?
There's one more of ours and then 4 of
Okay.
yours.
Okay. And I think for salaries, we're probably, we need to discuss that. And in order to in order to discuss it, we need to look back at the numbers that were presented and see if we're agreeing on that so that we can discuss things that cost money.
What do we have left to do?
All those, okay.
And these.
Mm-hmm.
And that one, that's gonna be a long one, probably. That one, probably not long, that one's probably not, that one, it'll be longer, yeah.
Hmm.
That one should be short.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts?
Because, we're just gonna stay until it's all done anyway.
Mm-hmm.
All of these items go to the financials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then it doesn't matter if we agree or if you're just going to agree that that's what we're gonna get done next.
Yeah, that's a good question. Are we just going to agree that we're talking about every single topic next time, so we'll stay here as long as it takes? Are we pushing some to the next? We have, what, 5 left, 4 left?
5.
We have 5 left to talk about.
Including salaries of 6.
Yeah, okay, well, okay, that's 6, that's a lot. A lot of the things that's been proposed are things that will cost money. So that's why I keep going back to that issue. Because there are things on here that won't cost any money. Probably. I don't know. I don't know. We don't know all the implications of some of them.
So I guess, can we reasonably expect to, I don't think we're planning to include our discussion on that,
No,
right?
we're going to
Okay.
just talk about it. That's one of the topics, yeah.
But I think the point is that we haven't even
Mhm.
touched on these ones yet,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. But we would like to talk about that one next time.
We've actually given proposals too. I
Mm-hmm.
I just would hate to be another 3 weeks down and then you know what's gonna happen. We'd like to get contracts out and then we're under the gun and, I would like to see us pick up the pace just a little bit. I don't know how else to say that. And I know we have to be careful and everything, but we've given proposals and we've been pretty upfront. And we're gonna keep doing that. We'll be ready for ours next time too. Along with discussions, we've provided support, is what I'm saying. And we would like to see some.
Right, and we're getting some more data on some of those topics that we've asked them that to be taken care of for the next meeting.
Okay.
So that's,
Well,
Can we discuss it all at the next meeting?
that's what I'm trying to figure
Well,
out.
May 6th seems like it's coming quickly,
It's
so I'm
all,
like,
it's all gonna depend upon what the topics, what the discussion entails, you know. We talked a lot tonight on a couple different things that I didn't think were gonna take very long. I actually anticipated we would get through it all tonight.
Right.
So you're saying in order to move forward on some of them, we need to know the financial stuff is
Yeah,
basically get
yeah,
that.
can we, are we disagreeing about things, or can we come to some sort of agreement? Because that's what our ground rule says we're going to do, and so now we're getting to the point where we're gonna be like, not
We-
going to be able to
Like,
talk
yeah.
about them.
Well, yeah, with discussion, you know, you know,
Okay.
I know we'll have a meeting and we'll be looking at everything and we'll be ready to discuss, absolutely. I just wonder if we shouldn't just finish the topics out before we get to that point. That would be my, because I would hate to push off the last, you know, let's say salaries, and you make the proposal, you know, and we get into discussion, and all of a sudden, our hour and a half is gone, and we still have 5 things left to discuss.
Right, right. I also don't want to have what has happened in the past. We get down to talking about things and all of a sudden there's a question on a number. And then everything just has to stop while we work out what the question is, which just makes the progress stop.
I just, you know, and I know that we've looked at the 774,000, 73,000, you know, and we just want, you know, I guess we're looking at, if the question I would have then is, out of that 773,000, what new money is going out to buses and things like that are you anticipating taking out?
Well, that is a budgetary item that's not
Correct.
negotiated.
Correct.
So-
And but that does affect as well what we look at, because if we look at the 54%, then we bank on that, and then all of a sudden we have, oh, by the way, we're taking this, and that's kind of what happened when we stalled last time.
Yeah, it
So-
took a long time to get started on, the
Absolutely.
district has to move forward. So if they're moving forward with budgeting, it might behoove us to settle those salaries. We're not on the budget committee, but, and, you know, we may want to get that
And I agree.
set.
I agree.
So maybe we can just agree to make very brief statements about those last 5 items.
Yep.
And most of them are ours, so we can control
Yep.
that.
Yep.
We won't have long discussions, just brief statements.
Depending upon
saying
questions.
what-
Depending upon questions.
Come on!
Yeah.
Because I mean, we're looking at one. I know that we have lots of questions about a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, let's try to keep it brief as possible. I guess that we're just looking for a commitment that we will discuss the financials next time so that we can move forward with salaries. and
absolutely,
revenue.
we can guarantee a commitment to discuss them, but I don't know if we can give you the actual that we're going to agree to them.
You're working with a ballpark figure.
A ballpark figure.
I mean,
Well, we all
for
are.
luck, exactly.
We all are, so
So you
if we
have-
can we all agree on the same ballpark figure?
Yeah.
Now and next fall.
I think we can definitely put it on as a topic.
Okay.
Put it on as a topic, Dr. Sullivan.
Now that that's settled,
All right.
That was quick.
Just wear that.
All right.
do we have a date and time in mind?
So, well, can we go back to the agenda? We're going to talk about the financials, And are we going to discuss all the other topics? Is that what we're agreeing to?
I sure hope so. Yeah, and if that goes longer than an hour and a half,
Maybe.
do we agree with that?
We're gonna order pizza.
I know Coach Schilbringer and I come straight from track practice, so it is supper time.
Right. Okay, so what, do we have some possible times, dates and times? To me, it looks like it will be after the 12th of April. Would you say?
Can you do Wednesday the 6th or?
Most likely not. I'm leaving on the 7th.
Through the 12th?
Yeah, we're gone to a National School Board Convention, the 7th through the 12th.
Okay.
So we could
So-
possibly squeeze it in next week. It may be difficult for getting our minutes out as timely as we would want, but we all know that. So,
Can do.
Go to the 5th.
I'm leaving.
yeah, you're
I'll be
leaving.
gone too.
The 4th, is everyone around the 4th still? You're gone?
Okay, so it is after the 12th then,
Oh,
probably.
man. What
Mhm.
time
The only date that I have next week is the 4th.
The 4th.
Okay, well,
The 13th. We discussed it though. We discussed it. You can meet with We might have to, if we
Let's
want
go
to get
the
moving.
fourth. Let's go the, let's,
Right?
should we go the 4th then?
Or the 13th, 20th.
I think to hasten, we have to.
Yeah, I'm fine.
We're willing to meet one member short on the 4th if it works.
okay. So
Understanding that we do need to get this done.
Right.
Yeah.
And Sarah's, Miss Berglund has agreed to.
Okay, so then what times are available?
Just for, if you need financial resource information, I'm in Chicago on the 4th.
Oh, okay.
Just give us your budget.
Yeah.
We'll have
Well,
some fun
from
with
the
that.
sounds of it,
Yeah,
everybody is
everything-
busy
yeah.
next week, so maybe we should push it back.
He's gonna be giving the
I-
You know what I mean?
financials.
Mrs. Fair, I think
Yeah.
that if we're going to have questions on financials that we
He's
want
gotta
to
be
agree
here.
on, he's got to
Yeah.
be here.
He's gotta be here for that.
But we could get through all this other stuff.
Or you guys can just pick a number.
We could get through. the
6.7?
Write it down, it's good
We
for me.
decided on the 4th, let's
6.7.
let's get through the other
Yeah.
topics besides that. Maybe,
Could we do
maybe
that?
we can be out of here in an
Yeah,
hour.
could we do that? And then, yeah,
Yes.
that'd be great to be out here in an hour.
You are an optimist.
Better than being a
We'll
pessimist.
we'll cling to your idea.
So the 4th at 6 o'clock again?
Is that what works for everyone? Is that 6?
That should work.
Okay, so the next meeting will be April 4th at 6 PM. Listening to the discussion, I'm not going to put financial information on the agenda. And the parties will just focus on clarifying the final items that have not yet been discussed. Okay?
All right, sounds good.
Perfect.
Is there